I've done a lot of big things in my life. I moved to Canada alone when I was 19 from Istanbul, Turkey. Completely different cultures. I didn't have that good of an English. Started a degree in psychology in British Columbia. And just like that, culture shock, tremendous difficulties internally. And meditation really helped me. Spiritual path really helped me. And also therapy groups, very deep healing to such a degree that 20 years later, I combine everything I've learned, all the things that I've seen within me, and I help people, I guide people in their own maturation. And I'm sure you are also aware that I have been aware that in our society, we don't learn any of these things. In fact, what got me interested in psychology first was that my realization that I didn't understand people. I just wouldn't understand why someone would do something or say something, they act in this way. What's really happening? What's really going on here? I was really confused by behaviors of people around me. From a young age, I could never fully understand what was going on. And also, internally, as I, starting teenage years, as I started to have an actual internal life as an individual, as an organism that's becoming an individual with one's own sense of self and one's own decision-making capacities and brain capacity, I also could not understand myself. And so I asked these very questions very early in life, very big questions about life, about one's internal life and how to live. And everywhere I looked, I found only an absence of answers. Or, in other words, maybe all the answers that were provided so readily, so down your throat kind of way, from the education system with all its rigidity and oppression, memorize everything, with all the insanity of it all, and the conditioning of society, and religious dogma and belief and blind faith, none of that did it for me. Even though I looked into those places also for answers. And a degree in psychology, I thought, maybe will give me some answers. Well, it didn't. Even a master's degree in psychology, master's degree in counseling, didn't. What began to give me the answers is that I had to deal with my own culture shock, that I had to deal with my own depression and anxiety and fears, and relationship problems. And what's been helping me tremendously is this psycho-spiritual path. Meditation is part of it. Awakening practice are part of it. Spiritual traditions, the spiritual core of every world religion is part of that. And learning to heal very deeply. Trauma work, somatic work. This is what I offer these days to my clients also. But today in this conversation, I just want to show you that I've been through some big difficulties. Depression, having to work through that. Anxiety and culture shock, adapting to a whole new language, all this and that, far away from everything I've ever known. From a very young age that started, I wanted this life, but it wasn't easy, hasn't been easy. And still I have to say that the most difficult thing has always been romantic relationships. Again, about that too, I looked everywhere for some teaching with some real teeth, some teaching with some real depth. Couldn't find it in the degrees in psychology. I couldn't find it, even in a master's degree in psychology. In counseling, I couldn't. I had to look deep and inside and begin to heal and find people who have been working for couples for decades. Have those people as teachers, mentors, respect them, humble myself, open my mind to learning from these amazing people who talked the language that I could understand, who combined spirituality, psychological healing, maturation work, getting in touch with our humanness, embodiment, profoundly deep embodiment of one's realization. It's not enough just to awaken, having experiences of awakening, liberation spiritually. It's not enough to make life beautiful, make life wonderful, make life rich and juicy and truly joyful, not just a state, not just on the cushion. So I want to talk to you a little more about love. And this love is small L love, as well as big L love, and also the place where these two things are not different. Love, but especially relational expression of love. Relational expression. This could be in your closest relationships. This could be with close friends and family members. But I want to even more specifically talk about romantic relationships. There's no teaching in our society about how to relate. I hope that you're aware of this. Nobody talks about healthy relationship. What is it? What is that, healthy? I've had to go into private trainings, mentorships, and I've become a student of my own emotions. I've become a student of my own dysfunctional patterns of relating that are the result of bad social conditioning and programming, and begin to dissolve them, begin to look at them, begin to dismantle them, uncondition myself, rewiring of the entire system. So love, in the way that it gets expressed, in the most difficult part of it, it tends to be for a lot of people, it's for sure has been for me, in romantic relationships. Why? Because romantic relationships, romantic sexual, emotional relationships, right? It's really everything. Our whole system is involved in it. It leaves nothing out. You have to be in it with your whole system. It's different than a friendship because sexuality is in it too. It's a big energy in us, sexual energy. And when we step into with our whole being into this thing that we call romantic relationship, intimate relationship, our deepest, earliest wounding gets triggered. Why? Because that's the place in us that first we began to get wounded. Attachment wounds from parents, earliest relationships, all earliest relationships with caregivers, with teachers at school, with best friends and teenagers, all of that makes a big imprint on us starting as a child. Our first attachment wounds, our first rejection, our first abandonment, our first betrayal, all of that, and the automatic coping mechanism creates defense strategies so that we don't get hurt again. We call that ego. I don't like this word. I never use it, but this automatic defense mechanism, it's a reactionary survival response. It's half intelligent. It does the job half the time in half ways, which in the future we need to look back and begin to dismantle. So our deepest reactivity comes from this place. And this place is often continuously triggered, for better or for worse, in our closest relationships, and especially those that are also sexual, romantic relationships. That's why look around you today, and you're going to see that most relationships around you are either very codependent relationships where people are really unhappy. They might even be suffocating, barely able to breathe. They feel complacent. They might not even admit because it's painful. It's really painful to look at these things. They might not even want to admit that they have gone flat. Their relationship has gone flat. And they keep on reminiscing the old memories. This is the case for a lot of relationships, by the way. Or they keep fantasizing about other people, which is no different than what I just said before. So what's needed here in romantic relationships? What I've been finding and applying in my life and getting good results, finally, that I feel relationally sane. After a lot of healing inside, I had to do a lot of healing. I had to ask all the big questions to myself, to my mentors, and really look at everything in life. Because your romantic relationship, the way that you show up for it, is not separated from anything else in your life. Anything else. To have amazing relationships, we need to be looking at all of our lives, at every dimension of our lives. It's a really profound thing. Because it's about the heart, it's about our hearts, and it's about the capacity with which we can express the love that we are. And nobody teaches you about that capacity. No one talks about the way that I'm talking about these things to you right now. Nobody told me about these things when I was a child, teenager, early adult, lately. None. Nowhere. Never have I heard anyone around me talking about love, romantic relationships, and how much it matters. How much it matters that we mature in the most beautiful ways possible to open to the love that's already here, as us, through us, beyond us, so that we can express this love in our lives, so that we can feel this love within ourselves and express this love. But it's not easy. Everything that you don't want to see within you, you have to see. Everything you don't want to look at, you'll have to look at. Every single emotion you run away from, you think you should never feel, is waiting for you to see it. I've been discovering this in my life. And through that work, that inner connection, I've been connecting with my sense of natural wholeness. And for as long as I'm relating from that wholeness, I find that I'm in touch with who I really am. All the adult capacities are part of that wholeness. And I can relate to my pain and suffering and emotions instead of getting lost in them, or instead of trying to act as if they don't exist, which never works, which never helps us. And I've tried that. As a man living in this world, that's the conditioning. Live as if none of that exists. That's the conditioning. Because otherwise what? You're weak. You're too soft. You're this, you're that. All the terrible labels are there for men to shame us back into our own heads, really. Because then we live here. And then we wonder why we feel so isolated. It's an extremely isolating place to be living here, even when the mind is extremely clear, by the way. Even when the mind is very spacious and super clear, it's possible to still fixate on the clarity of the mind instead of getting in touch with everything that we are. The high and the low, the dying and the undying, the dark and the light, all of it. All of it. And such is the invitation of deep love. Deep love that requires us to heal, to mature. to mature so that when our time comes to die, we can say, I've lived. I've lived. Now I'm at peace. I can go peacefully. This really matters. I hope that you found something beautiful in this very short little conversation here.